Welcome back. This is the second part of my app development course. Now, at the end of the last course, you saw that we had built our first basic app, and some of the more eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that the text field goes off the screen. So let's fix that. Now, obviously, when you're building apps, you will deal with lots of different screen sizes, and being able to deal with that is really important. So I'm just going to close off this code section here by clicking the cross at the top, and now I'm just back to the storyboard. So what we use is a system called auto layout, and I select an object, and you can see the text fields going off the side, and then down at the bottom here I can add constraints to that object, and all those are instructions on how the object should position itself in lots of different screen sizes. So I want this object to always be 44 pixels from the top of a screen. That's what it currently is. I also want it always to be 20 pixels to the left, as it currently is, and 20 pixels to the right, as it currently is. And I always want it to be 34 inches high, again, which it currently is. I could change this to be 30, and then it will actually kick it off to the right a bit, but I don't want to do that. I'll just keep it at 20. I then click Add Constraints, and when I now replay, I stop and press play. And you'll see the simulator then loads, and you'll see that it's now got a space on the right hand side. And if I hold down Command and left arrow and change it to landscape, it's still 20 from the left, 20 from the right, and the 40 something from above. And I can then do exactly, but you'll see the buttons are off. So I want to do exactly the same with the button and the label to make them centered. So I can select here, select right, add the constraints, keep the height, add all 4 constraints. And if I make a background color for the button, then when I press play, you'll now see it's behaving correctly. Now with the label, I'm going to set a background color, but I don't want it to go all the way to the edge of the screen. Instead, what I'm going to say is I always want it to be 150 wide. I always want it to be 21 high, and I can then click to this one, and I always want it horizontally on the page, and you'll see it auto realigns. So now when I press play, rather than hugging the edges, it will be centered and 100 wide. So you can see, and actually it's shot up to the top. And the reason is because I didn't give it a Y position. So I make sure I've selected the label. I go back here and I say I want it to be 25 pixels from its nearest neighbor, spacing to the nearest neighbor, which is this button. So I add that constraint, and you'll see that little line appears to say it's always going to be 25 from there. I then rebuild the app, and there it is. And all the previous functions that we did should all still work if we turn it, and the high's still working. There we go. And that's the end of the introduction to auto constraints lesson. Thanks very much.